October 22nd around noon. As planes land on the east runway, it looks like a catastrophic crash.
There should be 150 souls total on board.
At Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport.
8032's on scene and staging. Possible fuel leak inside the fuselage. Got a lot of injuries.
Fire.
I am out of water up on the aircraft.
And mass casualties.
Roger, a lot of these patients have petroleum.
With a massive response from more than 20 different mutual aid agencies.
10 apparatus and about 43 personnel.
From fire over to the EMS triage.
From Louisville.
They trained for this, and this training exercise was the largest ever at the airport.
Should a major aircraft incident happen here at SDF, you don't know what those circumstances are going to be until that event.
Bird strikes, the reason for a miracle on the Hudson. Or a blown engine blowing out a window at 32,000 feet, the reason for a rapid descent and diversion to another airport. We've seen these emergencies in the headlines, but so many others seem to fly under the radar. Incidents which don't get the attention but still have to be reported to the Federal Aviation Administration. So we asked the FAA for data on emergency landings and flight diversions over the last 10 years. This is what they gave us. 245 pages, including 848 incidents by our count. Hits from an FAA search of its accident incident data system, using keywords emergency, divert, and diversion. Many are duplicates of the same flight because planes declaring an emergency often have to divert to the closest airport. The most frequent reasons from what we found were bird strikes, turbulence causing injury, and landing gear problems. Fire and smoke even more so. With that in mind, many of the summaries of what happened are pretty scary. For example, on November 14, 2009, after takeoff from Kansas City, a Frontier flight hit a large flock of birds that caused both engines to lose power, with the number 2 engine stalling. The pilot, the captain, managed to safely return to the airport. During descent into Harrisburg, Pennsylvania on March 3, 2012, severe turbulence caused an Air Wisconsin plane to drop 300 feet. The sudden plunge lifted a flight attendant into the air who hit her head, and she then crashed onto the floor. She had a fractured vertebra. While cruising on January 12, 2016, a Hawaiian Airlines flight diverted to the nearest airport because of fire and smoke in the cargo hold. The cause? Well, an e-cigarette. Also in 2016, a SkyWest flight made an emergency landing on December 4th in Pensacola when an engine blew. Flying debris went through the left side of the airplane, causing depressurization. That forced passengers and crew to put on oxygen masks. Does this stack look big to you?
Not really.
Marissa Colclaser, an airline pilot,
I'm amazed that it probably wouldn't be thicker, to be honest.
says with all the flights in the air daily, more than 44,000 the FAA handles, emergencies are declared all the time. The stack,
here, I'll give you this,
may be smaller because the FAA admits there's no specific database which actually keeps a record of all emergencies, and many cases get turned over to the NTSB. Therefore, this is what we had to work with.
There was a hole approximately 2 feet long and 1 foot wide.
Colclaser knows bird strikes are dangerous.
Some larger birds, buzzards, can hit with such force that they can make their way actually into the cockpit.
And some problems.
There's a lot of scenarios that we, train and go through.
Would make a pilot want to get to the ground faster than others.
you don't want a cracked windshield at 35,000 feet.
No, you would not. You don't continue to fly with that.
A lot can go wrong with an airplane, but as stated repeatedly in the data and reiterated by Colclaser,
Most emergencies are non-eventful.
crashes, however, happen and are personal to this pilot.
My dad actually died in a plane crash. It was an engine failure right after takeoff, and 16 of the 22 on board died.
Clearly, that didn't stop her from flying, and she says this data shouldn't scare people either to stay grounded.
It's so much safer than driving. They're highly maintained aircraft, and pilots are trained, and everybody's getting training. There's always constant changes to that because of reports like this.
For Focus, I'm John Charlton.
When abortions are under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back! group of young people. We're targeting Mitch McConnell. We're targeting Matt Bevin. And any misogynistic man.
You must repent and trust in him. What you're doing here today is demanding that that little unborn baby lay down their life for you.
The attempts to outlaw abortions will not effectively stop abortions. This will only hinder poor and working class people.
In the name of reproductive justice, in the name of rights, we murder our unborn children to the tune of 60 to 70 million since 1973. How wicked is that?
The multitude of people are in support of our policies. He's got like one wacko across the street. Our body, our choice. Our body, our choice. Our body, our choice.
Not yet the weekend. And the deer keep coming in at C&J.
You want us to do it here?
Deer processing in Louisville. The busiest time of the year
Burger.
is now the busiest ever,
We're probably looking at 1,900 deer this year.
despite the sign on the door.
Not allowed to take any deer from out of state.
A serious threat right on Kentucky's doorstep.
It's in several of the surrounding states. Bad stuff if it gets here.
Chronic wasting disease, or CWD, is highly contagious
It affects the brain and nervous system.
and is always deadly. Protecting the herd
They're trying hard, I know that.
starts with state samples.
Working on breaking down the connective tissue.
Deer processing at Kentucky Fish and Wildlife Resources
And I'm going to disarticulate the joint.
is the job of state veterinarian Dr. Christine Casey and involves the brain
This is where we were going to detect.
and lymph nodes.
Past 10, 15 years, we've sampled over 30,000 animals.
And nothing.
Nothing so far.
Nothing now, but with detections in 6 of 7 surrounding states.
It is kind of a matter of time.
CWD infects not just deer, but Kentucky's prized elk herd is also at risk. They waste away as holes develop in the brain.
It looks like a sponge under the microscope. They're drooling, they're stumbling, and then there's also this emaciation, or basically they become skinny.
The disease spreads quickly, mainly through urine and saliva, and there's a lot of that around salt licks and wherever else deer are baited.
If and when we find CWD, that will be one of the first things we do, is no longer allow baiting, no longer allow artificial mineral licks.
Well, why not just do it now? Why we gotta wait until it's actually here?
For us, baiting is something that most of our hunters are used to. They rely on that.
Scientists believe that even when an infected carcass dissolves into the ground, grass and other vegetation growing in that spot can sprout CWD for another deer to come along and graze over.
Leave all the bones, all that stuff there.
Therefore, the Kentucky rule: a deer, elk, or even a moose hunted in another state must be processed out of state.
Just bring back your meat.
But how is that meat?
Do people at home have to be worried about what they're eating?
Well, the CDC definitely recommends not eating any deer that test positive.
The CDC maintains that while the agency is unaware of any people getting the disease, the research raises concerns.
There is some evidence that non-human primates, which are very similar to us, can get it. If you're traveling out of state to do hunting and you're in a state that's CWD positive, you should be getting your meat tested.
C&J Deer Processing is helping with the state's prevention process.
We've been pulling samples for probably 5 or 6 years for them.
There's real value in venison, the meat of a natural resource, for now unspoiled.
We're blessed to have a great herd, healthy herd here in the state.
But for how long, with CWD again on our doorstep?
So our current closest one is 59 miles, and that's in Tennessee.
When you look at it where it's found, in Tennessee and Missouri, it's close.